Sweet Christmas.
Shout out to my birds.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Che.
This is Corey.
And this is the Next Time On podcast, a podcast where two lifelong friends discuss all things amazing and all things fitted in popular culture. We're like Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp, except instead of ruining the Premier League by being too good, we've ruined podcasts by being too great. Is that fair, Corey?
Stop making soccer jokes. I don't know what the fuck you're talking. I never know what you're talking about.
You've heard of Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're good.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Listen, I'll watch some Formula One so I can make some references.
Thank you.
To
That'd be
guys
nice.
Sitting cars.
Fuck off.
I know Lewis Hamilton.
There you go. Everyone knows Lewis Hamilton.
Wait, it was the guy who got the noose, but it wasn't a noose?
That was NASCAR. No,
Right,
no.
it was an American
Formula
guy.
One is Europeans are much more subtle with their racism. That's all.
Yeah.
It's like we hate him. Why? Because he's good. Okay. Okay. What
Yeah.
did he do wrong? Nothing. Got it.
I mean, isn't that sports in a nutshell, though?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No.
just-
It is.
It's been a very weird week in sports that we won't talk about because this isn't a sports podcast, and also because we have a lot of shit to talk about today. But it has reminded me that humanity is a deep, dark hole plummeting to the ends of time.
It's been a weird week in New York as well. So.
Yeah. But on that cheery note, we're going to talk about one good movie, two good TV shows, and one experience. Just honestly a cinematic experience.
I think we should open up with that cinematic experience then.
Yeah, well, we'll do the business points really quick. As usual, if you're watching the YouTube video, please like and subscribe. Really helps us out. We've got I know we teased one earlier that kind of got shelved because we got more busy than we expected. We've got a YouTube exclusive coming pretty soon. I'm not going to say what it is in case we get busy again.
Well, let's just see how it happens. But hey, listen, if you check out the YouTube to watch this anyway.
Yeah,
But
either way, this is a YouTube video, and if you're listening to the podcast itself, you should go check that out. Drop a subscribe. Link is in the description below.
we'll definitely remind you guys about it whenever we do post it in the episode following that as well. So keep an eye out.
You can also follow us at Next Time On Pod, and of course, you can find all of our past podcasts, all of our writing, all that good stuff at nexttimeon.net. And last but not least, coming up this month, maybe next week, maybe the week out. Corey and I haven't really talked about it, but soon, because it is in celebration of this Moon Knight TV show, we'll be doing Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight run for the All Old, All Good Book Club, and Paul Hunter's movie. I was going to call it a film, but it's a movie, The Bulletproof Monk.
It's something that's, once again, I'm not excited for that. Gotta turn my lights on.
There's just no way it's going to be as like unfun to watch as Four Brothers was, though, right? Four Brothers was just really boring and weird.
Four Brothers is currently trending top 10 on Netflix, but so is an Ultimatum show, so who fucking gives a shit?
Netflix. So this week I got hit with the first of many $22 Netflix bills to come. Anybody who's on this podcast knows I don't really use my Netflix. I basically don't ever log in at all. My mom uses my Netflix more than I do, and I'm really considering. I'm a degenerate in that sort of I convince myself that it's for the podcast, but really it's just because I'm a completionist. I have all of the streaming services. I have Paramount Plus and Peacock and the ones that you guys have probably never even heard of. I paid for them all. But the $22 a month that hit me on Netflix for a service I do not use.
Is that the regular pricing
It's
now?
the new price hike. It was this is the first month. Or maybe it was last month, but it's recent. They raised the prices again.
That
In
is
preparation
$22.
for
$22 is ridiculous. It's so much money.
but they realize, and probably correctly so, that for most people, Netflix is just TV now. Apology if you can just hear me pouring my water. But and it could be like $40 and people would still use it because I know most people, I still think probably most people I know, what they do is they come home from work or they get off of work, they close their laptop or whatever, and they just go, I want to watch TV, so they turn on Netflix. And that's how they watch TV now. I get that because it's a sort of relationship I have with HBO Max in a way where I'm like, if I don't really have something specific to watch, I just boot up HBO Max and go from there.
Yeah.
But Yeah, at least, but HBO Max doesn't cost me $22 a month, and I
It's
actually
so much
use
money.
it. Insane.
Well, HBO Max is still $15, which is still pretty ridiculous in
Yeah.
its own right.
I can't. I mean, it's not Netflix's fault because the reason it's like this is because Netflix won, but really this is
Yeah.
the end game of everybody. When Disney Plus can charge us $22 a month or $40 a month, they will.
Yeah.
If they can get away with it, they absolutely will. But let's just jump into it. As we teased
Okay.
already, we are, I say we, but Corey
I didn't
literally refused to see this movie, which
Absolutely.
fair enough. But we will be talking about Morbius. A movie that every time I start to say, I go to say Venom, and I have to remind myself this isn't Venom, it's Morbius. It's the other bad decision.
It's the worst one. It's between the two. It seems it's like the worst movie. The one that makes less sense to me.
I haven't gone back. Obviously, I haven't gone back and rewatched the first Venom. I don't. This is maybe blasphemy. I actually think Morbius is better than Venom 2.
I have not seen any of them.
All three of them are terrible. Let's be very clear.
Okay.
But I think also I've a little bit softened on this movie since I saw it, because since I saw Morbius, I also saw Ambulance, which
Just two bad decisions back to back.
dude,
Honestly.
pretty much. Ambulance.
You know what? Jay, I have to ask you a question though.
Yeah.
Would you, and you definitely would have had a better time seeing Sonic the Hedgehog 2, besides seeing both Morbius and Ambulance. You probably would have had a better time, and you know that, right?
I
Not
know,
saying
'cause
that
you know
I've
what?
seen it. I'm just saying that.
I despise Jim Carrey. I can't
That's-
stand watching him. I like Jake Gyllenhaal a great deal, and
I would not. I don't like him enough to watch a Michael Bay film though.
I didn't realize it was a Michael Bay film. I forgot about this. And the reason I obviously, if I was a degenerate, I would have texted Corey this immediately. That text I sent you after the movie, I thought it 30 seconds in, because there is a slow motion close up shot with a lens flare in the background of an American flag that has no context at all. And I was like, wait, this is a fucking Michael Bay movie? Am I sitting in a theater watching a Michael Bay movie? How did this happen?
You said I was going to see Ambulance, and I was just confused. I didn't want to stop you, but I was just like, what is he doing? I don't understand.
Sometimes my blank slate rule burns me. I'm well aware of that. I think the wins outweigh the losses. And what happened is I saw this movie star Jake Gyllenhaal and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, and it was an action movie of some sort. And then I stopped absorbing information about it, which is usually my rule. I'm like, if I know I'm going to go see a movie, because I love Jake Gyllenhaal, I think he's one of the most exciting actors working right now, maybe one of the most exciting actors of all time. I kind of love everything he does. Even in this movie, he's great. The movie around him, the structure of the film around him makes absolutely no sense. He's a ton of fun to watch.
I just saw, it's one of my favorite like trailers for a movie that I don't actually, I mean, you saw it, so it technically has happened, but the trailer itself, it just seems so dumb. And it's just like they're in an ambulance, and then there's a cop involved, and then I always like, also I love the line, and there's a trailer, it's just like, they got one of ours in there, and it's just like so stupid. It's such an indicative state of like the fucking American police system, where being like, we have to give a shit more about this because they have a cop on board.
Well, it's not a spoiler, but also I don't care.
No, it's not a trailer. Who fucking gives a shit? Yeah, who cares?
So not only is there a cop in the ambulance, obviously there's an EMT in the ambulance with them.
Who's wearing
They're not concerned about her.
No, not at all. Fuck her. No. Go fuck herself.
There's a part in the movie where they think the cop has died. And so, but they know the EMT is alive. They're well aware of that. And they're like, all right, now's the time to hit them because the cop died. It's like still this woman who's innocent and also a hostage because is in the fucking ambulance.
A better movie that would be it would be on purpose to be like, oh, this sucks. But in a Michael Bay film, I'm assuming there was no sense of that whatsoever.
It is. I want to say this lightly because this man has made a lot of trash in his career. I think it's the worst thing, other than Transformers, which will never be topped. Transformers is one of the worst things that's ever been created. By the end, he just like gave up. There was like green screen shots that had been left in the film but hadn't been green screened over. He just stopped making a movie by the end of that. Other than Transformers, this is the worst thing that Michael Bay's ever done. And that is saying something because Six Underground was very recent.
Oh, I forgot about Six Underground.
Pain and Gain is a movie that he definitely made. And I mean, not to shit on the 13 Hours hype, which is out there. 13 Hours is a reprehensible film.
It is. It's horrible. No, it's a really bad. I saw that movie. It was real fucking bad. I haven't seen Pain and Gain, and I haven't seen I saw Six Underground actually for some fucking reason.
I watched the first 15 minutes of Six Underground and I bailed. And if I
was that the one with Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
where it was like that long ass horrible car chase scene, and I'm like, oh
that
shit,
that ends
and
with
then
Dave Franco brutally dying.
I was like, oh, Dave Franco's in this. Maybe I'll actually stick it through.
Nope. Dave Franco has like 3 lines before he gets impaled by a forklift in that movie.
I was like, this car chase scene is lasting far too long.
Should we talk about Morbius though?
Yes, I want you to so I had not seen the movie, as Che mentioned earlier, because I don't hate myself. Yes. But the way Che just the description, and I also had to go out of my way to go find the after credit scene because I was just so curious.
I will say, if you guys haven't seen Morbius, just go track down the after credit scene. You don't need to go to the theater to see this. It's fucking hilarious. Sony is determined to make this movie. It's gonna be so bad.
Jay, so can you walk me through what Morbius is before?
Morbius?
Yeah, sure, why not? Because at least to me, what I know about Morbius is not much. I read comics.
Yeah,
I like comics. Clearly,
he's a non-character. Really.
Do this thing. I mean, he was in Marvel. I know him from the old Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah.
Where he was just this all white creepy motherfucker just hanging around, but he's like a vampire, but not a vampire. But he wasn't like a character that I was like, I need a movie about this. I
don't think anybody was.
No, I don't think so either. I don't know how many Morbius the Living Vampire stands there are out in existence, but I don't think there's many.
I think that's the weirdest part about all of these Sinister Six movies, other than Venom, which somehow made $1 billion.
Are we actually believing there's it feels like the Universal monster movie? I'm sorry, guys.
Saw the after credit scene.
I'm just saying though, I feel like we're leading into the whole Universal monster. We're gonna have a fucking film franchise here with Russell Crowe and Tom. I remember there was a fucking picture.
Cover.
I still think of
Entertainment Weekly cover for the MonsterVerse.
Insane, but I just kind of feel like this is going in the direction of being I don't actually think they're gonna. I think they're setting it up to happen, I guess, in some way, but I don't know what the end game is because I can't imagine it's going to involve Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Well,
what?
No, it won't. Well, so I'm going to agree with you, except for the difference between the Sinister Six movies and the MonsterVerse movies is that up until Morbius, which the meme about Morbius is that it made $1 trillion. It's hilarious. Nobody saw this fucking movie. Up until Morbius, except for really up until Morbius is just 2 Venom movies, this franchise has been really successful. They pulled Michael Keaton from obviously a very successful Spider-Man movie. They can convince themselves in the boardroom that that'll be a draw for people. They can even convince themselves still that this is still a hangover from the COVID era. There's still a bunch of movies that are coming out that people aren't really willing to go back to theaters for. Nobody was ever going to see this fucking Morbius movie, even if it was in 2019 before the plague hit. Nobody wants to see Jared Leto, except for me. I want to see Jared Leto be Morbius because I think that shit is hilarious.
It's so stupid. But is there a plot? Does it fucking matter?
Actually, the parallel between this and Venom is actually really interesting.
Okay.
Because Venom is a good Tom Hardy performance, who's having a ton of fun, is really interesting to watch, surrounded by a failure of a movie on pretty much every other level. Everything else in both Venom movies, as you would expect, is really terrible, except Tom Hardy.
Which is the confusing thing about the Jared Leto decision was when has it been in the last ever where it's this is a good draw? I feel like everyone watched Suicide Squad.
But he keeps getting
roles. I'm confused, and he sucks in every one of them.
He was in a Denzel Washington movie last year.
I straight up think he's the only thing I could ever say bad about Blade Runner 2049 was his casting decision.
Yep.
That's the only thing I don't like about that movie is him.
Have you seen House of Gucci yet?
No, of course not.
House of Gucci is actually a lot of fun. It genuinely is a lot of fun.
Okay, so was Moonfall allegedly, but I was just wanting to bash my brains.
I still don't really get how you did like Moonfall. I did have a lot of fun watching. It's not good.
It's really bad.
House of Gucci is what's the best way to put this? It's a interesting movie in a film sense and a fun movie in a dumb fun sense. Adam Driver and Lady Gaga and Al Pacino are genuinely delivering pretty good performances in that movie. And of course, Ridley Scott, a man who is both capable of making legendary
The Last Duel
cinematic changing films and some of the worst shit I've ever seen. Sort of both of those things are on display in House of Gucci, which makes it really fascinating. The worst part about that movie
is Jared Leto.
Is Jared Leto's insane performance, where he's like a cartoon character in the middle of this otherwise seemingly normal film. And that's sort of, to bring it back to Morbius, is a sentence I never really thought I would say, but that's sort of what's going on in Morbius. Morbius is like the opposite of Venom, where actually, shockingly, I think there are the bones, and they are very dry, rotting bones.
Okay.
The bones of a good movie in here. And then for some reason, there is a Jared Leto and a Tyrese Gibson shoved in the middle of these bones.
I forgot that you told me that Tyrese Gibson. Like I tuned out. I try to tune out intentionally from movie trailers.
Yeah.
But I'm the happiest thing about this movie coming out is I never have to see a fucking Morbius trailer again. It was it's such a bad trailer, and it kept just. But I forgot that Tyrese was involved in this movie. I saw that Matt Smith was involved, and I'm just like, man, your agent needs to get fired.
Well, I don't even know if it's the agent. I don't really understand it, because there is a scene, I told you there's a scene where Matt Smith and Jared Harris are acting across from each other in this movie. It's the only scene where they're the only two people together in it.
Uh-huh.
It's like shocking. It's like from a different movie. There's like these two really good actors having this really emotionally gripping scene, and then I like blink my eyes and there's a cut and I'm like, wait, I'm still watching Morbius. What's going on? What was that last scene? Matt Smith and Jared Harris are
that
so
sounds like
good.
me and like Free Guy. I kind of feel like I was having an acid trip the entire time and not necessarily sure what the fuck was happening.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I just please continue though. I'm sorry.
Well, okay. So the overarching plot. Don't go see Morbius. I know people listening to this have already made the decision whether they're going to go see Morbius or not. If you're like the last person on planet Earth that's on the fence about seeing it, I'm just telling you right now, don't bother. So I'll just go ahead and spoil this movie. Basically, the idea is Morbius, whose real name I'm blanking on, Dr. Who gives a shit? I'm not even going to bother looking it up. Jared Leto basically is, he has, what's the disease he has, Corey? I was going to say polio, but I don't think it's polio.
I don't fucking know.
Shit. We should probably know this. This is how little it's like.
I didn't see the movie.
Wait, but I think it's the same disease he has in the comic book, right?
I don't. No one talks about Morbius in the fucking comic book.
That's
Jay.
fair. That's fair.
He's not a character.
I'm gonna quickly scan the Wikipedia article to see what disease it is. It's not listed in the Wikipedia article. That's not great. Doesn't matter. He has a disease that has basically made it so that he has to get like his blood filtered constantly. So as a child, he was in this care home, and then he meets his best friend, who is played by Matt Smith, and then we get a jump forward in time. This is when the movie starts, which is not, no, it's not when the movie starts, but it's when the movie supposedly starts. And Michael Morbius, which is the doctor's name,
so not a real name.
Marvel tripping on that one.
Michael Morbius? Okay.
Michael
sure.
Morbius.
Sure. Why not?
He the movie's off to a great start when he receives a Nobel Prize for his development of synthetic blood, which would be like maybe the most significant medical discovery since like penicillin, and maybe even maybe more significant than penicillin, saved millions of people's lives. And he turns it down because he hasn't cured this disease, this like rare disease that afflicts him and his friend and like a couple other people. And that's why he he invented synthetic blood that would literally save billions of human beings' lives across the planet Earth over the course of humanity. And so then he goes out to cure this disease, and to do that, he harvests the cells of vampire bats in Costa Rica. Okay. And then science nonsense, and then gets something that he injects into his body to and it makes him into Morbius, which is a vampire that doesn't suffer from like the vampire stuff. Like he doesn't get killed by silver bullets or affected by daylight, but he has to keep drinking blood, otherwise he reverts back to his like disease form, and then eventually gets bloodthirsty and kills people. Which is the first scene that we see him on when he finally transforms into Morbius on the ship is one of my favorite scenes of all time in a Marvel movie because it's so nonsense. They're on a boat where the intention was to do an experiment, like a scientific experiment. One guy, a doctor, injecting a thing into him. They have to do it in international waters because it's like semi-illegal. But on the boat with them is like a paramilitary organization that they've hired Why? Unclear. But of course, they all have AK-47s.
So I'm guessing they have to guess Morbius has to fight them and kill them all or some shit like that, right?
He murders this entire group of people, which does not come back to haunt him ever again. There's no repercussions for killing all these people who all they were doing was trying to protect themselves from the giant vampire bat monster that was killing all of them.
Okay, say no more.
There's even a line later where Al Madrigal, who's also playing an FBI agent, partners with Tyrese Gibson, says the line, "We don't care about those 8 people because they were scumbags." Okay, Al. Thanks, man. You want me to do your fucking job? No? Okay. Essentially, the whole movie is him, like, trying not to devolve into a blood-sucking murderous monster. Drinking as much synthetic blood as he can. The effectiveness of it wanes down over time. He's realizing that eventually he'll have to kill somebody and drink their blood or have to revert to real blood. He never seems to drink, like blood that's been donated. Like he's drinking the synthetic blood out of those like plastic packages you always see.
Yeah.
The IV bags. Never once tries to drink some blood out of an IV bag, which they figured out that in Blade 1, which seems like they should have thought of that in Morbius pretty early on. That's okay. That doesn't matter because his friend Milo, who was played by Matt Smith, decides immediately.
He's evil,
just
I'm guessing.
Kill everybody.
Yeah, I figured. Like you like, come on, like it's like they're like he's definitely gonna murder everybody.
But it's like frame 1. It's like basically Milo discovers that Morbius is hiding this cure from him, steals the cure, injects himself with it, and then like walks out of the building and kills people. It's like instantaneous. The movie is so great. But I tell you the plot because for people who haven't seen the after credits scene, like I said, the entire movie is about how he doesn't want to become a bad guy. That's the entire plot of the movie. And then the after credits scene.
Which, first off, I mean, that's one thing I've seen in the movie.
Yeah, you want to run that down for the people?
Sure. Well, like this is what happens I don't fucking know what the fuck happens, whatever. So the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, just magically appears
just flies
in a prison.
Slowly across a field.
No. This is
that part. Sorry, this is the first.
So he magically ends up in a prison, and then of course, since he's a random person ending up in a prison, they were like, "We have to release this guy. We don't know how he showed up," and that's just a really random thing. So it's like, whatever. I don't know how that works.
I mean, I guess it's not a thing that we have to worry about in real life, but you would think there'd be some more.
Yeah, questions. Right? It's like a man who just appeared from another universe and also doesn't have any like, what?
The news reporter suggests that he's let out like the next day.
Yeah, it seems like he like just was walked out immediately. He's just like, oh, I guess you're good. And then after the post credits, like then for some reason Morbius is in a field. Why is he in that field? No one knows.
He's in that field so they didn't have to bother having him and Keaton on the set at the same time.
Wasn't like Michael Keaton was in the fucking bird costume.
Yeah.
And then Michael Keaton full costume, definitely not Michael Keaton, shows up. Why is he in the Vulture costume? How did he get the Vulture gear again? Who fucking knows?
I never even really thought about that.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't a Vulture unless he.
Yeah, like he like stole Tony Stark stuff. Yeah, there's nothing.
In this world, there's not even any alien technology.
No, it's like
for him to copy.
None of it. It wasn't like
I fucking love Sony. They don't
like
give a shit about movies.
He wasn't like he was an inventor in like the Marvel Studios when he was just like he just team.
Found alien technology. Yeah.
And then
I never even clocked that. That's a good catch, Corey.
And so Morbius is in a field and he shows up and he's like, I don't know how I got here. I think it was Spider-Man or something. Which, first off, sir. Why would it be
know
Spider-Man?
how you got here though?
No, but I'm saying like, why would he assume that it was Spider-Man that caused him to be sent to a different universe? He exists in a fucking world where Thanos was a fucking thing, where half of reality has got snapped out of existence. Wizards are fucking known. There's this alien. There's so much shit. But why would you think the motherfucker who's swinging around is the reason you got
the guy
sent
who used
to
to
another
dicking
fucking
down
world?
Your daughter is the one who said yes.
In fucking insane. But also the second part about that as well, in the end of Homecoming, when he was like, I'm not revealing Spider-Man's identity. Yeah. Because he's pretty much he's not like a bad, like, I mean, the whole point of his character, I guess, was like, he's not a good person, obviously, but he was doing it for his family and he got too greedy and all that shit like that. Yeah. He wasn't supposed to be.
So far, all three of these people in their movies, the 2 Venom movies, the Spider-Man Homecoming and Morbius, they've all been not even like anti-heroes, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
no.
Vulture has been. Vulture he was pushed to the brink. But like Venom and Morbius are just straight up heroes in their two
Yeah.
movies. How are they going to make a Sinister Six movie with 6 heroes?
But it's also like, why the fuck he's like, I think we should team up on what? Do what?
Yeah, that's the best part. And then Morbius just goes, that sounds very interesting. Why does it sound interesting?
Why is it interesting?
What do you want to do with this guy?
What is this gonna do? It's like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?
Oh, that's so good. I genuinely cannot wait for this Madam Web movie that they cast Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson in. For what fucking reason?
Madam Web's not a bad guy. Is she gonna be Sinister Six? Like,
I think so, right?
it's crazy.
Sony seems to be rushing to the
crazy.
finish line with this, much like
How is
Disney did, or,
there-
DC did.
How is their animated movies, the Sony animation side of things, like Spider-Verse, so fucking good, but this is just like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing, basically, and it's.
Well, the
I
same
don't
reason
get
that
it.
DC animate. I think they're just like different departments. They like stick them
It has
in
to
a
be. It has to be
closet.
different. It has to be different departments because it makes.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine people being like yes to that. Like it's just like there's definitely a better way to use your Spider-Man properties besides whatever the fuck this is. Because I feel like at some point people are gonna be like, no, these are bad. We should stop seeing these. I don't know when that's gonna happen. I'm not giving them money. Chase giving them money. Don't know why he did that.
Let's be very clear.
Yeah, let's be.
I go to all movies, so basically I go.
You're just
to,
a
like,
piece of shit.
My money goes everywhere. I distribute my money across the board, except for the Fast and Furious movies. I don't go to those.
Yeah, that's too far. The Fast and Furious movies are way too far. But Morbius
Corey, they went to
and
fucking
Cats-
space. Don't give me that. Don't give
Oh,
me
you
that.
watched a movie about fucking Jared Leto flying around a subway train system.
It's so weird
You
to
have
me
no
that
room to
Jared
stand
Leto's in
on.
this movie.
No room to stand on. None.
I will say, just to say one positive thing about Morbius before we eventually move on and never talk about it again. The visual effects were actually pretty cool. It's the first time I've seen because the visual effects in Venom are dog shit, and even in a lot of Marvel movies, I'm like, oh, come on, guys, what are you doing? The visual. Unfortunately, they're in the middle of some of the stupidest choreographed action sequences I've ever seen in a superhero movie. So you have to sort of squint your eyes and forget what's happening around them. But the decision to make the way that Jared Leto's Morbius flies around and the transforming of his face.
Why can't he fly?
Oh yeah, there is this scene where we see him learn how to fly, and it doesn't seem like he can fly. The suggestion seems to be that he could see the wind and and then he can glide on the wind.
How is this stupider than the movie about to talk to you after this?
I honestly don't know. There's a part. So when he learns how to fly, it's when he's in the subway tracks and a train is coming, and he can see the air current, and then he just opens his arms, and then he flies away. It's incomprehensible. Do you want to talk about Tyrese at all before we leave? Because Tyrese's character is fucking hilarious.
I won't remind you, Chad. I've only seen 2 scenes of this, but please tell me about Tyrese in this movie.
Tyrese is
You
an
somehow
FBI
watched
agent.
you watched the worst Tyrese movie in the last 2 years that came to theaters. I want you to know that between this and Fast and Furious, you watched the worst Tyrese film.
I don't know if this is possibly worse than Fast 9. I'm sorry. Apologies to Vin Diesel. I mean,
Have you seen Fast 9? Have you seen Fast 9?
I watched it the first 10 minutes, and
I've seen Morbius.
I couldn't do it. I can't.
You are just fucking something else. I cannot.
I just think it's hard if your entire movie is 13 different actors and 0 of them can act, but then Helen Mirren and Charlize Theron are in it, and they're not allowed to do anything. Why has Ludacris got more screen time in any movie ever than Charlize Theron? Explain that to me.
Well, because they had Charlize Theron on set for 2 days, probably.
I know, but just don't make the movie then. Just don't do it.
We got to tie it all together by Fast 10.
But yeah, so Tyrese is playing a FBI agent, ex-Marine, who,
of course,
is so inconsequential to the plot that I would love to do this experiment, but I don't want to have to rewatch Morbius again. I think if you literally, not even edit it around it, if you just cut every second that his face is on screen, you wouldn't notice. He neither says nor does anything that's important to the scene. They just put him in this movie because this movie was film Mad Libs. Somebody decided that Tyrese is a big-ish star. He'll be a sort of draw to the theater, which is probably true. And they threw him in this movie. The best part about the scene is there is a line that gets ADR'd to death. And I really want to figure out what he's actually saying in it. There's a part where he's talking to Morbius where he says, "Your synthetic blood saved my arm." But the word arm is not the word that his mouth says. I cannot for the life of me figure out what the fuck that line could be.
What? Wait, what? Yeah, like wait, what?
There's
what?
also there's 3 close-ups on a scar on his
Why-
neck. that doesn't.
I feel like maybe like
arm.
someone was like, wait a second, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And I wonder who that person was because half of the film went by and they were like, none of this makes. I would love to be in an edit
What
bay
did
for
he
someone.
say? Did he say head? Because how could you save a head?
You
You'd be
saved
dead.
my. Well, how the fuck do you save an arm with blood? It's like it's.
Oh, Corey.
You could have just saved my life. That's all you got to say.
It's so funny to me that their plan is to make like 3 Morbius movies and then a Sinister Six movie.
Don't forget about Kraven the Hunter.
And Kraven the Hunter starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, who like again, Aaron Taylor Johnson is in the Matt Smith category for me, where I don't even blame them for this. For some reason, they've been like weirdly like blackballed by the industry. Where I think Aaron Taylor Johnson is like a good actor.
He just showed up in the Kingsman and he was just there, and I'm like, what? Why is he here? Like they
He's got like a non-part in Tenet.
Yes,
he's been relegated to be like a nothing.
For nothing, for no reasons.
Thought he was really good in Kick-Ass.
Thought he was great in Kick-Ass.
in Age of Ultron before they killed him for no reason.
Yeah, that was weird for fuck you, Joss Whedon for. But you know, let's talk about a different movie.
We need to
go away.
Saw Morbius.
We need to get away from this. We've been talking about Morbius for 20 minutes.
I want to talk about it for so much longer.
No more. We got to keep moving. We got some more stuff to talk about.
All right, we're going to talk about a good movie now. A genuinely, we sort of teased it last week. Corey got to see it before me because he lives in New York City and I live in the nation's capital. And for some reason, nobody cares about the nation's capital. We're not even a state.
Nope. Haha.
Yeah, sucks to suck. I guess. Everything, everywhere, all at once. This is the Daniels film. Would you call this more a fantasy movie or more a martial arts movie? I know it's basically both, but
I think more fantasy.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call it like a martial. I mean, there's definitely a lot of martial arts in it, but I don't call it like a.
It did have shout out to Ki-Hu Kwan, who has one of my favorite martial arts scenes of all time, the fanny pack scene.
So fucking
absolutely
good.
Amazing.
The way that they use first of all the martial arts comedy. It's like I haven't seen this done as well. I think this might be better in my mind than Kung Fu Hustle. The way they did their I
haven't seen Kung Fu Hustle in years, so I the one for me. And I even back in the day, I always liked Shaolin Soccer more. Shaolin Soccer was my favorite of those.
I think
those
Shaolin
movies.
Soccer is better than for like between those two. I can't remember the director's name off the top of my head, but I think between the two of them,
Stephen Chow.
There it is. But yeah, the fanny pack scene was amazing. I love the stairway. I mean, good stairway fight anywhere, but the butt plug scene was like one of. This movie
It's one of the best shots ever of all time. The guy, like,
yes,
two hand knees to his chest, jumping because the other thing is it's like Chekhov's butt plug. You see the trophies
immediately
like 30 minutes earlier in the movie, and you're like, well, those are butt plugs. We're not going to talk about how those are definitely butt plugs. And then the movie goes on, and you forget about it. Like at least I did. I was like, oh yeah.
I forgot about it. I mean, there was so much. Jay, I couldn't. There was way too much shit happening in other places, and I couldn't think about that. This was like, this was after the reveal that the daughter is also this god character too. So there's a lot of shit going on.
Is this after the everything bagel or before the everything bagel?
This is before the bagel.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So we haven't watched peak insanity yet, at least at this point in the movie.
The donut metaphor is still stuck in my mind from Knives Out 2 years ago. So I just got to like bagels and things with holes in the middle of them used to encompass the universe is a common theme I think apparent recently.
Yeah. Well, also I honestly don't want
to. We are just sounding like insane people because we have not talked about the movie at all yet. But
insane movie.
Everything Everywhere All at Once is a sci-fi martial arts film by the Daniels, directors of Swiss Army Man. The movie is, if you cannot tell from already, guys, it is batshit insane. How big was how many people were at your screening, Jay?
It was packed. It was full. It was a sold out show.
I thought it being packed was one of it helped the film so much. Just reacting to some of those scenes, like the real, like we mentioned before in the butt plug scene, the realization the audience, everyone had of what was happening, the slow dawn on it was one of the greatest cinematic experiences that I've ever experienced. You know what the bullshit is? If they bring like that bullshit Oscar cheer moment shit again, that needs to be in the fuck. That needs to be nominated. Because that was amazing.
Yeah, that was up there. They won't do it. They won't do it. That was up there. I will say, the only problem I had with and this I saw this at the Alamo, so very very good crowd, nobody talking or anything. And this isn't her fault. I mean, it's an uncontrollable reaction. But the woman next to me basically cried for the last like 30 minutes of this movie. I was like, she was doing her best. She was like crying and trying to be really quiet. But obviously, she's literally right next to me. I'm like, this movie is like this part, basically the end of the movie, it becomes a mother-daughter movie, and there are some emotional scenes. But she's also, because of how the movie's cut, she's also crying during the scene where she's like getting run by the guy. I'm like, you gotta put yourself together, lady.
I gotta say, like, I think I called myself being really emotional, and it was just the hard cut to the raccoon thing. I'm like, it's like they do. I don't know how they did it to make it so like and work so well though, where it was just like cut between like dramatic scene, and then you're going to the weird throwaway line about Ratatouille being mispronounced about a raccoon, and then making that an actual. I
can't even remember how she said. Did you say raconcuy?
Yeah, I think that's what she kept on saying. That and they're like, "What are you saying?" And it was just.
Michelle. First of all, we haven't mentioned her yet, which is a little bit of travesty. Shout out to Michelle Yeoh, who is like tearing it up in this movie.
She's so good.
It is for. I mean. I think this is less a problem in Chinese films, but she has been just tragically misused in American movies. I think even in Shang-Chi, which I love that she was great in. She's like a bit part. She's so fucking good. She could have been in. Like,
I hope they bring her back for the eventual sequel.
I think she will be. I think especially after this. Like,
oh yeah, no, this.
I think this movie's getting a lot of steam among at least film fans. This is a big time movie. She's gonna be in Avatar 2, which if that ever happens,
who gives a fuck? Who cares? I don't care.
I think somebody does.
A lot of people will care, but I don't care.
It's not. Yeah, you're right. I'm not one of them, but somebody does care. I will say so. I think Corey and I have talked about this a little bit, and it was news that I had heard before, but I completely forgot until after seeing the movie. Originally, the character played by Stephanie Sue was supposed to be Awkwafina. I think that's the biggest casting change that happened. It's the one part of this movie that's like sort of stuck in my brain now because I really wish I'd seen Awkwafina in this.
I don't know. I just kind of feel like I like the
Sue is good. She's very good.
I like. I don't know. I kind of feel like I like the I haven't seen her in anything else yet. I think Che and I were talking about that. So I just kind of thought of her as like very like brand new, and I think she just looks a bit.
You have way less baggage with her for sure.
Less baggage. She looks younger than Awkwafina. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying based off of like the mother-daughter age difference. At least to me, it seemed like she was like mid-college dropout years and like doing everything you can to like upset your parents.
Shout out to her. She's 30, so she's doing good for herself.
Hey, good for her. Shit. I mean, yeah, no. And also Michelle Yeoh, I'm like, there's no way her like daughter's gonna like. But obviously, listen. But I kind of thought they just played very well together. I really liked their. But I definitely see how when they were writing this, I could absolutely like, especially the first scene she shows up in the fucking ridiculous costume. Yeah. I think even in my own head, I was just like, I wanted to ask Awkwafina to do this beforehand. And
it seems like a role written for her like brand of absurdist comedy for sure. I mean the dildo scene is like so very ridiculous. Very much like, yeah.
It's one of those movies I'm like, this was a really sweet movie, but then I'm like, if I was like, I feel like I want to show this to people, but then the scenes like that come in and I'm like, I feel like people are gonna think I'm they should not talk to me anymore because there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, I mean the Daniels have you have since when I think we last talked about this, you hadn't seen Swiss Army Man, but you have since seen it. The Daniels have a knack for being like.
I like this much better than Swiss Army Man. I don't think we talked about this since I saw it.
You also said this was one of your favorite movies of the last like 5 years.
It might be one of my favorite movies of all time. Honestly, it's up
Ooh,
there.
That's
it's
big.
Up there. It is that's up there. Big. I think it's like in my top 10. I have not stopped. It's like kind of the Dune effect in a much stupider direction where I'm like I can't stop thinking about how this movie was made. And like also shout out to the Daniels. I was reading some interviews about them. Apparently, like their stunt crew, they found them on YouTube. A lot of those frames are like, I mean, a lot of the frames, at least to me, I noticed that they are like not mirroring, but they all seem kind of familiar. And if you guys haven't checked out the YouTube series, I should not be plugging other YouTube shows, but every frame of painting, or like I think it's every scene's a painting or something. I don't know which one it is. Yeah. It's just kind of like breaking down scene and cinematography work. And they like cited a lot of use from that into bringing this and I got to imagine having Michelle on set was really great. I know I got really obsessed weirdly with like old Jackie Chan movies in the beginning of quarantine. for like a weird month I went through. I'm sure longtime listeners have noticed my erratic behavior throughout this podcast. But like it's kind of the way that they like shoot martial arts like films, and that's why they always kind of seem better. It's like they do the double impact kind of thing, and I saw like a lot of like influence based off of that. Have you ever seen any old Jackie Chan interviews about his directing techniques? It's really interesting. I would always recommend giving that a watch.
Yeah.
Even though he's not a guy really doing great right now, Jackie. But other than that, the police pulled this is some Chinese blah blah blah.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing about it. I will say that
he's on Ansel.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I will say you are obviously higher in this movie than I am. I like this movie a lot. The absurdity for me goes a little bit over the top at times. To taper a little bit of, I think the hot dog fingers stuff like
went on
for
a bit too long.
The joke ran out for me like maybe 20 minutes into it.
I think the joke ran out for me, and I think that's the one joke I didn't love, but because it was also just like
I didn't really get the payoff of it either, where it was like, oh, these two characters.
Why are you making me think about this again? I think I blocked that part from my brain, but please continue.
It was like, well, the payoff is sweet. I like the moment at the end where Jamie Lee Curtis has this moment with Michelle Yeoh at the outside the laundromat, and they like have this really touching moment where they both realize that they are more alike than they realize, and it's paralleled with this parallel universe where they're lesbian lovers with hot dog fingers.
What a sentence.
But I think the payoff for me is not worth the joke. I thought at first when it was like one clip, it's like, oh, there's this alternate universe where we have hot dog fingers because at the beginning of time, one monkey with hot dog fingers killed another one with a rock, and like that changed the course of humanity forever. Is a really funny joke. Having to go back and like watch her play piano with her feet, and like the mustard scene from The King and I.
But I kind of get it. I get what they were trying to say with the scene, with the whole like we adapt and we like shit happens and we just got to kind of deal with it basically. Did I want to see the disgusting hot dog finger thing over and over again? Absolutely.
I think it's the noise that killed me. Like every time they really have to put the Foley artist to that much work. Every time they move their hands,
they had to.
It's so gross.
See, it's like I think watching Sir Army Man and then kind of like thinking about that scene again. I'm like, that makes sense. This makes sense. Doing this back and forth, this makes a lot of sense. I also did really like the scene where the alternate reality where she's like a movie star, and her scene with, I forget the actor's name, I forget her husband's character.
Oh, Ki-Hugh Kwan.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy. I liked him a lot in this film, and like someone who grew up on the Goonies, I'm very happy that he's like
I'm glad he got some moments, especially in that timeline, to like really act. Like he wasn't just doing some pretty sick martial arts, which was really cool, but it wasn't even just doing the like silly buffoonish character that he is in the other timelines. And that one, he's like, is that really where they're sitting outside and talking outside of the Chinese theater? I think it's supposed to be the Chinese theater.
I think so.
And they're like having a cigarette together.
Was it in China or was it?
It might be. It might have been.
I think it might have been in China.
Because that's right. In that timeline, she doesn't go with him to America. So yeah, of course, there's.
But I think his delivery, the whole like, I would have like, it would have been nice if I did the whole like if we just like did taxes and shit like that. I don't know why. It was just he brought a very like a sense of like just, and I mean like with all these films, and it always kind of does sound very like, it can like saying it out loud sounds kind of preachy and bullshit, but the whole like love is important and all that stuff like that. But I think his performance was so like, it felt so genuine that it was like, and I can believe all the like the stuff you're spitting right now.
It's definitely the thesis of this movie is like love transcends all in a way that is much better executed than like Interstellar, which I think is my least favorite version of that ever. I think this does really land the family payoff because you have these three characters that are at the beginning of this movie quite
separate.
So they have like the big rift in their family, and it's not subtle. It's not the point of it's not to be subtle, but underneath the underlying plot of this movie, through the everything bagel and the butt plug and scenes and the alternate realities and the reality where they're both rocks that know everything.
I love that rock scene. I fucking love that rock scene.
When it turns around and has the googly eyes.
This is so silly.
Really
It's just
underneath all of that is this thing that, like, no matter what, like in this version of they say this is the version of Evelyn Wong who is the biggest failure. Like she has tried a million things and failed at all of them, but this is still the best Evelyn Wong because she has this family that really loves her and cares for her, and she's got this daughter. Like, this is the one reality where her daughter didn't become, whatever the fuck that thing was supposed to be, time god.
I read a book that was basically did a non-absurdist version of this idea called the Midnight Library, where I don't want to spoil anything for the book, but it has a very kind of similar message at the end of it. If anybody wants to read it, I don't want to recommend it. I think it's an okay book, whatever. So, but like a very similar message. But like with the way they were able to like deliver the whole like take a step back, look at what's important, basically, and all that other shit like that. It comes across so much better in this, which is saying something because this is the hot dog movie. But it's just like the way that they were able to like do it, and I love her like breakdown at the very end of it, and like the kind of semi-fight scene between her and her daughter. It was just good. I don't know. It was just really good. And I mean, like, she didn't actually go back to her real universe because she would be in jail, but she's in, I guess, the secondary universe. It's pretty much the same exact thing.
Yeah. I'm obviously, like I said, we differ a little bit on how much we love this movie, but I do love this movie. I thought this was fantastic, and I think I had it where I'm looking at my list right now. I had this fifth on my most anticipated movies of the year. It's the second one that I've seen so far, and so far they both very much lived up to expectations. I'm very excited for The Northman. Obviously, that's my number one movie of the year.
Is that this weekend?
Yes. No, it's next weekend.
Okay, just making sure.
I think it's the 22nd.
I gotta go buy my tickets soon if that's the case.
I'm not going open weekend. I can't do that.
I know. It's like, not we do a podcast about movies or anything like that.
First of all, let's be very clear. The Northman is not like, it's not like Morbius, where it's like an event where people need to like talk about what happened in the after credit scene or anything.
Let's take a quick break and come back and talk about some TV.
You just sure you don't want to talk about Morbius again? We could go back to Morbius.
Talk about TV. I gotta send an email. Jesus.
I did what I did for the good of the realm.
The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agreed to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
But what do we have left once we abandon the lie? Chaos. A gaping pit waiting to swallow us all.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. Many who try to climb it fail, and never get to try again. The fall breaks them.
And we're back.
What's that?
All right, it's time to talk about
The Netflix new amazing television show Ultimatum. Let's everyone talk about it.
I honestly don't know what that is. What is that?
It's
this is the second time you've mentioned it. I've never heard of it before.
I was before we get into actual good television story time, I was at my friend's after going after drinks. We were all hanging out at her apartment, and they were like, I want to watch this Netflix show. I watched the first episode of it. You should check it out with me. It's this reality show. It's fucking insane.
Oh, it's a reality show.
Yes, it's Jay, I've never.
Oh wait, no. I think I saw. This is how my reference works.
Yeah.
I think Jesus and Miro did a segment on it on the trailer. Is this when they're like all in a house together, and one of the partners has decided they want to get married, the other one is like, we want to break up, and then they decide at the end of the show? Let
me just describe this insane social project that somehow got greenlit. So you're very on point. It's a hotel with 8 couples. No, I'm sorry. Was it? I guess I think there's 6 couples. And the idea of it is like one of the people in the relationship were like, I want to get married. And I gave the other person in the relationship an ultimatum, and they were like, I'm not ready.
It's always a good sign. It's always a good sign to be like,
always a great sign.
We're going to spend the rest of our lives together, or else.
That's basically, so from the get-go, Che, that is just the state of being for everyone in the show.
Got it.
And so what the show does, though, is they're like, oh, so just to make sure, to see if you're ready or not, we're going to pretty much do a round robin, and then everyone's going to date somebody different from one of the other couples and live with them for 3 weeks. And then after the 3 weeks is up, you go back and live with your other partner for 3 weeks. And then at the end of it, they decide if they want to get married or if they want to break up.
I think.
And everybody, Che, the worst part about it is no one is above the age of 26. Everyone in the show.
Married then?
I don't know. Everyone wants kids. They're all children. It's so fucking bizarre. It feels. I feel bad because I'm like, everyone in this needs to be like in therapy for various reasons. Yeah. But
I honestly think the world would be exponentially, and I mean exponentially better, if somebody just made porn for women. Because like the only reason the show exists or like The Bachelor exists.
This is like, no, I can understand The Bachelor and shit like that. This is insane. It's like it's such an insane thing that happens because everyone in the show is fucking insane and everyone's really horny.
Of course they are.
Everyone's so horny and it's so funny.
That's amazing to
me. It's just like it's like watching a car crash. I felt gross watching it because I just feel bad for everybody involved, but it's entertaining.
Was it this year or last year where that British show came out that was like The Drop? If it was like dating show where...
Oh, we talking about like The Circle? Is that it? I didn't watch The Circle.
Is it where they literally get dropped through the fucking ground when they get eliminated?
I don't know.
It's another one that I just saw a clip on Daniels and Michelle Yeoh and they talked about it. It's like, there was a dating show. And again, I have zero reference for what was going on. But they would like choose the women and eliminate them one by one. And if you got eliminated, instead of calmly turning to the left and walking off stage, that fucking trap door opened underneath their feet and they just dropped. And that was the draw of the show. To be fair, this is the same country that bought us Naked Attraction, which, have you ever seen Naked Attraction?
No.
So the concept of Naked Attraction, how do we become this show? But it's fine. The concept of Naked Attraction is you get a person who's trying to decide, it's a dating show again, and they start with, I think it's 5 people. And they all standing behind doors that slowly raise up one by one. So the first round is up to the waist, so you just see genitals. And then the person stands there with the host next to them, and they like, I like that dick or I like that vagina. And if they don't like it, then the least desirable dick or vagina gets eliminated. And then it raises up and you see the chest to that down. And they're like, I like that torso the least, they get eliminated. And then the last 2 come out with they're fully naked standing there. This is, by the way, just like on regular TV because the UK is fucking lit. And then the person who's choosing, they go backstage, they take all their fucking clothes off, they come back out. Then the 2 remaining people decide, they go, actually, we don't like her or we do like her. And then they just either walk off stage together, I guess, to then go fuck in the dressing room, or they don't. It's patently insane. Dating shows are sad, I guess.
Sad, very sad, very sad.
Almost as sad as my boy Jerry West in Winning Time.
Last point before we get to Winning Time is the best part about it is when they choose who goes with each other couple. They all sit at a big ass table and be like, I want to go out with that person. And
together?
They were like, no, everyone's just like pretty much like, I choose to like spend 3 weeks with this other person. And
they all choose the same person?
No, but yeah, saying no, there's at least one instance of someone being like, I don't want to be paired up with this person. Because they do like kind of date for like 3 days before. It is, somebody calls a woman, she's like, I don't find you attractive. To her face.
Ooh.
Who uses those words?
I mean, the same kind of person that would go on a dating show
about that. No, I
with
like,
their
listen,
partner.
I don't want to recommend something like that to people, but at the same time, if you ever just like want to see like a bit of insanity, I implore you to check it out. But Che, we can talk about Winning Time now.
I mean, Winning Time is also patently insane, but it's certainly not that level of insanity. For those of you who don't know what Winning Time is, it is the story, the true-ish. I know a lot of people have gotten up in arms about how this is like not exactly a true to life recreation of the events. I never really get bothered by that. I know it's probably not fair. Everyone's really angry about how Jerry West has been depicted. I don't care about Jerry West, so I don't give a shit that he's been made to look like an alcoholic psychopath.
It's a comedy show.
Aggressive sex.
It's a comedy show.
Yeah, if you're watching Winning Time starring John C. Reilly, and you're like, this is a documentary about the Lakers, you're the one that's fucking up. I think this is the best thing on TV right now. Other than Atlanta, Atlanta just it's like in a different category. Atlanta's like not even a TV show anymore. It's like a fucking religious text to me. I'm so excited every time there's a new Winning Time episode for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I think this cast is insanely good. Quincy Isaiah, who plays Magic Johnson, is fantastic.
He's amazing.
Playing Kareem is great. Jason Clarke's Jerry West, I'm in love with. I know everyone hates him, but I think it's so
Jason.
good.
I love Jason Clarke so much. So like underrated. I don't know, underrated is the best word for it, but like just not used enough.
He's not underrated in the Lawless Hive. The Lawless Hive still rides hard for my boy Jason Clarke.
Wait, you talking about the movie Lawless?
Yeah.
I like Lawless.
Lawless is sick.
I like Lawless. And I like Tom Hardy in Lawless because he doesn't open his...
invincible. He could not be killed. There's a scene where he
doesn't he die
like
from pneumonia
times.
at the end? Like he just dies from pneumonia. Like after he gets like shot a bunch of times, like in like bootlegging times. You don't live after like you get like lead poisoning and die, but he did not. He falls into a lake. Shia LaBeouf.
What a great fucking movie. Jessica Chastain. It gave us a lot of legendary actors.
Wow, I forgot about that. This was like when Tom Hardy was getting super jacked for Bane too, so he's like uncomfortably big.
Yeah.
In like the olden times, like where are you going? Where's your protein shake at? What's happening here?
So it's interesting because this show had a lot of negative buzz around it at the lead up, mostly on the back of Will Ferrell's reaction to being not cast as Dr. Buss. I genuinely don't really understand. Like,
how could he? Like, I mean, like, why would he not like be like his friend? Like, he's like, this guy's a better choice than me. Like, I don't know why. And also, it's like you have the money for it. Like, I mean, I get because he's probably a basketball dude. He wanted to be in the show.
He loves basketball, so fair enough. But it's weird to me, and we've seen this a lot to draw a parallel to current basketball. Russell Westbrook is a very good example of this. I think once you get to a certain level of success, and Westbrook and Will Ferrell are both in the top 0.0001% of their industries. You just can't, nobody can tell you shit, and it's very hard to be introspective. The fact that Will Ferrell, star of Talladega Nights and the other guys, thinks that he could pull off this role as Jerry Buss for like 10 hours a year, 2 to 3 years, and be good is crazy to me. I like Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell's a funny actor. He's made a lot of really great movies to watch. He is not good at acting. He would not be good in this. His dramatic movies are at best B pluses. Stranger Than Fiction, I think, is like a weirdly shit movie. I know people love that thing, but
people love that whole like comedy actor be a little serious and something. Like me with the first half of Funny People.
I always forget Funny People is it's like not a funny movie. It's so weird.
It's like
Adam
Sandler. It's a really solid first half of a movie, and then the second half they were like, we want him to live, but also be a huge piece of shit by trying to break up this marriage for no fucking reason.
Yeah, I think there's like a thing with Judd Apatow where he famously told Jason Segel, also great in this show by the way, he told him when he was writing Forgetting Sarah Marshall, he's like, what you should do is write a drama, and like the script should be a dramatic script, and then we'll make it funny. Like the actors will make it funny and everything. And they just skipped the second step when they were making funny people. They wrote a drama and they didn't make it funny. It's a very weird choice. But that's the thing. I think this show is like, one, I think the story of the Lakers in 1979 is maybe the most fascinating show in sports history. I sort of knew a little bit about it going in. I wasn't aware of how basically leveraged to the hilt that Dr. Buss was in. They play up the drama a little bit where they seem to suggest that like quite literally if they hadn't won the title in 1980, like the Buss family goes bankrupt and like a weird bank in Sacramento owns the Lakers now. I don't think it was quite that dire, but I do think it was a point where he was like literally the Lakers are the only thing that he had to his name for a while. And still to this day, the Buss family is the only owner group in the NBA who primarily makes their money or made their money from basketball. All the rest of the owners of the NBA teams are billionaires from other stuff who bought NBA teams. or some of them were millionaires who bought their NBA team in like the 80s. But
well, they seem to do pretty well, kind of. Not this year, motherfuckers. Oh, haha.
well, but even like a lot of what happened this year, and their hesitancy to pay Caruso and so on and so forth. We don't need to become a basketball podcast, but like all that stuff is tied up in the fact that the Buss family can't really afford for the Lakers to stop making money. Even this year, their tire fire, all that stuff, the Lakers and the Staples Center, now the crypto arena or whatever the fuck, still prints money. And that's kind of what the story is about the building of the Lakers dynasty and like the building of this thing that we recognize now as one of, if not the most name recognized franchise in America. Still, there's probably football teams that are way more, like the Cowboys are way more valuable.
The Cowboys are like this. I think the Cowboys are like the most, like,
yeah.
Even though they
I think outside of like Real Madrid to be specific, and like Manchester United, I think the Cowboys are the most valuable franchise in the world, which is saying something because in Real Madrid and Manchester United play a sport that everyone on the planet watches. Nobody outside of America and like a couple people in London and like a couple dudes in Canada watch football.
Canada has their whole. They have their own league. That's the only other like professional. It's the only other professional football league I believe outside of
There's
America.
an Australian football league, but it's a different.
That's rugby.
There is Australian football. It's Australian rules football is a different thing though.
But no, I'm like I actually like this so far. How
so fucking good.
do you think the show? I mean, I like the shows a lot. I'm wondering how far do you think they're gonna go with it? I guess.
I thought at the beginning of this show, that has since changed based on the pacing. I thought what was going to happen is this was going to be one season that was going to start with the draft of Magic Johnson, which is sort of where it started, and then end with the championship, which, I mean, I guess spoilers, but the Lakers do win the championship this year. After all of this insanity, their coach almost dying, Jerry West walking out as the head coach before the season, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on like his last legs basically as a star, all this other stuff, the insanity of the finances of the team, they do end up going on to win the championship this season. It doesn't seem, unless there is a big jump in these next coming episodes, that's what's going to happen. I think we'll get this season over this season of basketball over 2 seasons of the show. I don't know if that's the end of it though.
So the final episode is going to be called Promised Land, which I don't know. That kind of feels very like.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't fucking know.
We are 6 episodes in at the time of recording.
Mm-hmm.
We've got
4 more left.
4 more to go. I would be shocked if it ends with them winning the title. Like I said, especially because the last 2 episodes are basically surrounded Jack McKinney, which I think is like a really. I sort of knew a little bit about Jack McKinney as like I'm like a sort of hardcore basketball fan at a point in my life. I'm a little reformed, but. He's one of those guys who was a lot forgotten to time. Like I think a lot of people think about the Lakers and the Showtime Lakers, and they think about Pat Riley, who also again shout out to Adrian Brody, who's absolutely
okay. I'm reading right now that apparently the first casting choice for Jerry Buss, which I could not imagine, would be Michael Shannon.
Interesting. I mean, I think Michael Shannon has the same sort of like manic energy.
It just does. I don't really know if he could like get away with kind of Riley's kind of charm. I guess to the same, like, I don't know.
Oh, Riley, not Jerry West. Sorry.
Michael Shannon was going to be playing Jerry Buss.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think...
Jason Clarke was cast. Jason Clarke was one of the first people cast.
Yeah. I think that he's too young. I mean, that's the only... He just...
Yeah.
He actually might be the same age as John C. Reilly. Let me not do that to him, but Riley definitely looks older. No,
a little bit.
Riley's 56, and Michael Shannon's only 47. He's almost 10 years younger. So
I didn't know Riley was 56. I thought he was. Never mind. Okay.
I honestly think John C. Reilly is the in a show that we already talked about has been cast almost perfectly. I think he's the best. He's the best cast character. It's like a almost
absolutely
genius casting choice. It's incredible. He is one. So likable when he needs to be, like Jerry Buss when he's on his like basically like shell game stick where he's being basically a con man is so believable and great, and then the switch can flip and you realize how much of a degenerate asshole this guy really was at times. The scene where he's like I don't even really know. I guess he was literally fingering this woman in a restaurant, and his daughter is watching him. Is like one of the most skin crawling scenes I've ever experienced, and Riley plays it perfectly. I can understand if you were a fan of Jerry Buss how you might not love his depiction of this show.
Who gives a shit?
But you know, I think probably he was also not like a perfect guy like a lot of these ones. Like Magic Johnson, not a perfect guy, which I think this show has embraced too. There's that scene where he says some truly wild shit to his girlfriend back home when he's hurt at what she says to him. So it's I think this show has really done a great job of not shying away from what is really interesting about these characters. I think a show, and I've talked about this before, I think hagiographies are some of the most boring things on planet Earth. It's why I did not ride with King Richard. It's just this hagiography of this guy who was probably really complicated and maybe was an interesting guy, but that movie didn't have anything interesting to say about him. And I think Winning Time has a lot of interesting things to say about these characters. Not to mention it's technically really well done. I love the way it looks.
It looks really cool. I really like. I mean, I saw some people complain about the back and forth with the older
I love that.
I like it. I liked it too.
It's really cool.
I liked it too. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. My phone just got blown up with some stuff.
Corey's a busy man.
I didn't mean to be. I'm sorry, guys. This is our time, and I'm sorry that it gets wrecked sometimes. But Che, do you want anything else to say about Winning Time? Because I would like to talk about our next show as well.
Yeah, I think we'll check back in with this. I think Adam McKay is quickly becoming. We talked about Don't Look Up. I don't know if he's one of the most interesting filmmakers. He has a great eye for talent. I mean, he's the same guy who saw something incredible in Succession, which I mean he's produced this and Succession back to back, two I think lights out television shows, and two very different television shows in a lot of ways, but also very similar. I mean, there's stories about these rich people who are just fuck ups, like just on the surface, like they have everything together, but when you peel back the curtain even slightly, you realize how bleak it really is for them. And I think
they're just like us, bleak and sad.
I don't want anybody to say I'm just like the Buss family or very much like the Roy family. I would not like to be associated with that.
Che, I see him in you every day.
Thank you. I guess. No, I don't. I think we could move on. I'm really loving Winning Time. If you're not watching Winning Time, don't be like. If you're like, I don't like basketball, don't be scared off by that. I mean, I
have a lot of friends who like were like not aware of like the Lakers are really basketball and like they've been loving it. It's like part of it, but I mean like the story itself is like kind of, it's more about like the kind of like a company.
I think we've seen like two basketball scenes.
Yeah, it's like
it's a workplace comedy.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I was about to say like a kind of like business startup, like those kind of shows. Yeah. Like
also, any show with Wood Harris is a good show. Wood Harris, speaking of people who've been criminally underused by the industry, Wood Harris should have had a career like skyrocketed to the moon after The Wire, and that just hasn't really been the case. But he's another one who's great in this. But yeah, we can move. We got one final show to talk about. Another HBO show. This one is a Max original, which had me worried at the beginning because usually if a show is like really great, HBO puts it on HBO and doesn't. There have been some good Max originals, of course, like Raised by Wolves, one of my favorite shows of last year that we talked about. Or sorry, I guess 2 years at this point. But the show is Tokyo Vice, Michael Mann's newest.
I was reading up on like seeing. I was trying to figure out if there was like much of like there's like a connection between. I was trying to read to see if there's a connection between like the book itself and the TV show. I couldn't like figure out how much of a difference it is.
Yeah, so this is the story of Jake Adelstein, based somewhat on the memoirs of Jake Adelstein.
Yes, Tokyo Vice, an American reporter on the police beat in Japan.
Yeah, so he was a crime reporter in Japan in the 80s, right? This is the 80s?
Yeah,
no,
90s. 90s.
It's the first thing I've seen in a very
99.
long time. Yeah, it's the first thing I've seen in a very long time that makes Japan look completely undesirable.
Yeah, it's very it definitely like kind of like, I mean, you kind of do hear it and like kind of like, but it was like this seeing the bleakness of it, and I'm like, why do you want to be here, man? Like, it doesn't seem like it was like it's like I'm wondering if they're gonna delve into that at all, because it just doesn't seem like a very fun experience.
Yeah, that's the thing that becomes clear pretty early on. I mean, there are some moments. The show opens up. We see Jake living a relatively normal life in Tokyo before he takes this exam to become, I guess, certified as a journalist.
Didn't know you had to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is their version of journalism. At least I won't pretend to be an expert on Japanese journalism in modern times. So I just go off of what's in the show at the moment. But like, their idea of what a journalist is in 1999 is basically completely different from our idea of what journalism is in the year 2022 in America. At least they basically copy and paste monkeys. Like all they do is take crime reports and put them in the newspaper.
It's like, I was thinking about it, like there's no like, I think like the why there's just no story involved in it. It's like literally reporting the news. It's like just condensing it instead of like kind of building. Now, you're not necessarily supposed to do this all the time, but not really building a narrative or like kind of like any kind of indication on that. And I kind of want to see, like, I'm interested to see what the steps is going to be for this character, where clearly like the story that he's going to, I'm assuming the stories that he's going to be publishing at some point, and how he's going to be able to get away with publishing these stories under this very racist and strict newspaper that he's working under.
One of my favorite scenes in the first episode is Jake Adelstein, played by like 6'5" white guy Ansel Elgort, is walking through the newspaper headquarters, and then a guy like doesn't really, he just sees him and like slams him up against the wall.
What are you doing here?
Who's this guy? What's he doing here? There's not even a second in his mind that he assumes that this white boy is in the right place, which I love. I think it's really funny. Although we then meet like pretty soon afterward like a lot of other white people walking around Tokyo.
But most of them are like prostitutes. Well, not prostitutes. Hostess.
Prostitute is fine.
Yeah, you know. Listen,
I don't think we have a lot of prostitute listeners that would be really upset about us calling them prostitutes.
I'm not shaming any sex workers. Okay, just want to make sure. Want to put that out there. Okay.
No.
All right, just making sure.
Get your money. I'm all. But if you take money for sex,
that's fair. That's fair.
That makes you a prostitute. I don't want to. You don't just skate around it. Yeah. Shout out to Rachel Keller, who, at least as far as my last experience with her, was in Legion. I did not watch any of her other stuff.
That's where the fuck she's from. I didn't look up. I was just like, wow, you look familiar.
Sid from Legion, a favorite until the last season, and then hated it. Yeah, I don't know. What is there to say about? I we don't need to have the Ansel Elgort conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about. We talk about the. I mean, we only watched the first episode, and I wanted to talk about.
I've seen all three.
Okay, so
I don't.
I wanted more of my man Ken, and I saw him, and I'm like, I want him, and I see him, and I was like, I want you, come in. But then I did like the shitty cop that he like works with in the beginning.
Man, I've never seen that.
He's a very fun character. Really, I haven't seen him before either. Really fun character. They a lot of people in this, like, they really become very distinctive like early on, and like they don't have to say a lot, but like you can just, they do a really good job of like kind of giving the characters some things. And also this kind of the look into with how the Japanese police system, I suppose, like works. Not police system, but like kind of the way that like they deal with like the whole "there's no murders in Japan" line.
That line is crazy.
That was just like such like a really just like
so
from
good,
the back, too. Which, I mean, I really kind of hope they like dive a bit more into like Jake's character, because I was just like, I have so many more questions. I'm like, why would you want to move this country? Why would you want to report on this? Because it seems like, I mean, like, wouldn't he have a kind of a bit of an understanding about how they report? But if he's a literature student beforehand, I suppose he wouldn't necessarily know too much. But like, especially on the police beat, I guess. I don't know.
I think the idea that like Jake's character, whether it's true to life or not, I think the point of him is he's got a little bit of hubris to him, where it seems like he really believes, like I think a lot of people do, that they can make real changes in this world that's like pretty stuck in its ways. And well, maybe we'll see by the end of the show. Maybe this will be a story about how the Japanese, and maybe that's the point of his book. Neither of us have read it, but maybe this is a story about how the Japanese journalism industry was ultimately changed by, at least in part, by this one man's efforts. I suspect that's not what we're going to find out Although the fact that Ken Watanabe, who plays a detective in the show, is the co-lead, does suggest that
and I mean, also
Jake Adelstein has like a closer relationship with the police than the journalists have in the past, at least.
I mean, we have that opening image, the opening 2 years flash forward,
Yeah,
2 years
that's right.
down, where he's just like kind of like sitting with some Yakuza guys with.
And the guy's like, "You're gonna drop this. You're gonna drop this story."
Which I think is a really good. That's a really good thing, especially like looking at his frustrations as a journalist, where it's just like, okay, at some point, there's going to be something to break where he's like allowed to like report. And I'm a big sucker. I mean, fucking love French Dispatch. I'm a big sucker for like journalism in foreign countries as like as a backdrop for a story. And I mean, shit like Tokyo, it just seems very cool to shoot in. So
Tokyo. I mean, the opening like 20 minutes of this first episode is it's like this experience of Tokyo that is, I think, really singular. Michael Mann has a knack in really all of his work. And he only directed the first episode, and then after that, it's directed by two different directors, Hikari and Joseph Waldika. I don't really know how to say that. I'm sorry.
I
don't know either of those.
I saw it, and
people.
I'm like, I'm not even gonna fucking try it.
Yeah, I've never seen either of their names before. They're new to me, at least. But I think the way that Michael Mann shoots Tokyo is very reminiscent of the way that Mann shoots Los Angeles in Collateral, and like Miami in Miami Vice, and really all the cities throughout his movie. But those are the two that come to mind most specifically. And they just make these places that most people, I think, usually in movies and most people's experience of these places, Miami in particular, it's like this beautiful place to like this idyllic location, beautiful women and architecture and beautiful weather. And then Michael Mann gets his hands on the camera and he's like, no. This place is seedy and disgusting and it's awful.
Crowded.
And that's the part about Tokyo that I really like exploring in the show, because you never really get to see that.
And I think also having a character like Ansel with him being so tall, also like
literally, like in the club scenes.
Yeah,
in
like
particular.
the club, like he just like stands out in every room. So it's kind of like a very shifted focus of it as well, instead of like kind of makes it feel more like alien and foreign, because like the camera angles like has to focus on him, and him just being literally a head taller than everybody else is very clear. I did like the club scene a lot though.
Club scene's really good. I mean, that's a good point. Like I especially in scene shot in Tokyo, like even New York, you get a lot of the ways that directors will shoot that is it's about like blending into this crowd, and you're like, the way that they make New York and Tokyo feel overwhelming because you're like walking through a sea of people. But even when Elgort is standing around in this crowded room with people, it doesn't feel like he's being sucked into this void, really, because he's quite literally standing a foot over them. It's really great. I will say this show is reminding me a lot of the BBC show from a few years ago that I really loved in 2019's Giri Haji. It's maybe a little bit of a lazy parallel because it's another Japanese crime show, but they're both about these worlds in Tokyo, these underbellies of Tokyo that you don't really see much, and they both, of course, explore this version of the police industry that you don't get to see a lot in TV shows. I'm very excited for the show. I'm enjoying Tokyo Vice a lot. I kind of... We talked about this a little bit in the break, and again, it's not really worth getting into because we're not the experts on this. Despite all this stuff aside, I mean, we don't need to talk about it, but I think he's such a good actor, and Elgort's so great in this. He's kind of the perfect choice as far as just performance goes. He's both capable of being like completely lost and seems really innocent, and also is clearly maybe at times way too assured of himself. The fact that 2 years from now, from this character we're seeing in the show, he's going to be sitting in a room with a Yakuza guy who basically, and not even basically, like literally threatens to kill him if he doesn't drop this story, suggests that he is a little bit too big for his britches, and I think that'll be the downfall or really the success of his
he's not, I hate to check people, but he's not fucking dead, so... No,
he's still walking. He does not get killed by this guy.
Real life guy, at least, seems that apparently it's memoirs, but...
Yeah. I wonder what... maybe I'll track down a couple interviews of him before...
I kind of want to read
what he thinks about this show.
I wonder, too. I mean, I've heard the book is really good. I was reading up a little bit like about the book and stuff like that. Wow. Original start. Guess who? Just any white guy. Just kind of like the most random choice you could think of for this.
Who was originally supposed to be in this role?
Originally, yeah. And this would not have worked whatsoever.
I mean, the only one I'm thinking of is Timothée Chalamet, but that's probably not it. Because
Daniel Radcliffe.
Pretty good.
I'm just only.
I think Daniel Radcliffe is because
I love Daniel. I just think the whole like height aspect of it is weirdly like important.
It's true. The height aspect is. But now that I've seen that, yes. But
I think Daniel could have worked though. I just think it's very just like it's like short man versus tall boy. It's just very like.
And that's the kind of role that we don't get. Like, I love Daniel Radcliffe's career. It's been actually pretty exciting since the Harry Potter movies. He's taken a lot of risks, but he tends to do really more comedic roles, except for one of my favorite movies of his, maybe my favorite movie of his, this movie Imperium, where he plays an undercover police officer or undercover FBI agent who infiltrates a American Nazi organization. Is a really great parallel to Tokyo Vice. I actually think if he had done a version of that performance in this, that would really have worked. If you guys haven't seen Imperium, definitely go check it out. It's a hardcore watch, obviously, but it's really good. Yeah, actually,
I'll check it out. I'll check it out. I think Daniel would have worked really well in this. I mean, I definitely would have liked to see it, but I just seeing Ansel in this role, like just kind of like how like the way he moves too, it's just very like I don't know, it's just very he feels much more out of place than like.
Yeah.
I think that was a very good decision to make somebody who's very much just like not.
I also love these two guys that are supposed to be his friends. And you look at them sitting at a table together, and you're like, these three dudes would never have spoken to each other ever. Even though they work together, there's no fucking way in hell. Yeah. I'm really enjoying this.
Me too. I'm really enjoying it too.
We'll definitely check back in with Tokyo Vice again.
Absolutely.
What did we say? How many episodes is this ultimately?
I think I saw 8. I think I saw eight. Yep, 8 episodes.
They're doing 2 at a time. I just saw, which is interesting.
It'll be done by the end of this month.
I wonder why that decision.
I mean, maybe it's just like they're kind of focusing on like the streaming thing. Maybe they're trying to do the whole like once a month you get a series kind of situation. I mean, last month was DMZ, and that was, but maybe like this is a good start. So maybe that's what they're trying to do now. And I mean, I know they're trying to bump up the HBO Max thing because I think they're getting Batman next week, which is like.
But before every show I've watched in the last 5 days has been the Batman trailer being like it's coming April 18th.
Oh really? Okay,
right,
that's
guys,
it.
I know. Thank you.
I mean, I'm excited.
Oh no! I love the Batman.
Yeah.
I also need to be told every 45 minutes.
It's really great because like every week I'm like I think I'm gonna go and like see the Batman at some point this week. But now I mean much I love the movie going experience. It's gonna be very nice to watch that on my couch.
Listen, you should all already have HBO Max because legendary television show Pennyworth season 3 is coming exclusively to HBO Max later this year. So I don't really know why you don't have it already. Pennyworth is the greatest thing that's ever existed. Not just greatest TV show, greatest thing. It's not since sliced bread. Better than sliced bread. Fuck bread. Pennyworth. Anything else to say about Pennyworth, Corey?
No,
or
not yet. I should go back and catch up on Pennyworth.
It's actually genuinely really fun.
I genuinely enjoyed it. I just kind of got lost in the whole like the romantic subplots in shows sometimes just bore me to death.
Yeah, I feel like shows feel like they need to have like even Tokyo Vice.
I was wondering. I was like, I truthfully do not give a shit about this at all. I go back to the whole murder subplot. Like, I don't care.
I think she's a good actor. I like Rachel Keller a lot. I could not care less about whatever this relationship is going to develop or not develop into. I thought for a second he was going to have this weird sexual tension with his boss, which would have been even worse. So
I'm glad that didn't happen, but I really thought that was going to be like some weird, like she was just going to hate fuck him, basically. And on that note.
On that note, that's what we're ending it. All right. Well, please, if you haven't already, go rate us 5 stars. Really helps out the podcast.
It does.
Also, if you're watching the YouTube video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're not watching the YouTube video,
you should go check it out.
Yeah, scroll down to the description, click on the link, drop us a subscribe.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has fucking Google. Do it.
I will say,
it takes you 3 seconds. Come on.
At the moment, we're a bit difficult to search for on YouTube. So just find us in the description below.
Thank you.
And the more people that subscribe, if we get enough subscriptions, we can edit the fucking URL so it's not just a random string of letters and numbers.
That would be very nice.
Great. Yeah. Anything else for the people, Corey?
Oh, no, not at all. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right. Well, I've been Che.
I've been Corey.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.